Good morning. We're good? Good morning. We started on Monday the Maimer Vayeishev Yaakov Eretz Muguri Aviv. Yaakov now returns to Eretz Yisrael, to his father. Vayeishev Yaakov, he resides in the land of his father, Eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. So the Rebbe asked, Bachal, what's this idea of residing in the land of Canaan? What's this double expression of, we all knew that Yitzchak lived in Eretz Yisrael. So why does it have to say that he lived Eretz Muguri Aviv Eretz Canaan? So the Alter Rebbe said, to understand this, he brought a pasuk, Salech Lefnei Hashem ba'artzis hachayim, I walk in front of Hashem in the lands of life. And Alter Rebbe explained that there's two levels of containers to bring Chaim El Yenim. And he says, to understand this, we first have to understand Bechlal, why is Eretz Yisrael called Eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan? Cham was the father of Canaan. Cham was from all the children of Noach. He was, let's just say, the least of the good ones. And Cham Avi Canaan wasn't a good person either. So why are you bringing the Shvach of Eretz Yisrael, saying that Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Canaan? It's not a good thing. Also, he asks, we have to understand, what does it mean that there won't be a Kanani Oid Bebeis Hashem? So he says that everything in Torah is Zel Umazeh. Whatever we have in Klippa, we have in Kedusha. So just like we have also in the story of the Sar Tavochim, Sar Mashkim, Sar Ifim, you have the same thing in Kedusha. As we know, the pasuk says Zel Umazeh Asalikim. So the Alter Rebbe explains that the three children of Noach, Kedusha, come from the three levels of a rainbow. A rainbow consists of white, red, and green. But through Seder Yishtalshalos, you can have the level, basically a physical Cham Gashmi, who is the father of Canaan. To understand this, the Alter Rebbe says, to understand what does it mean, a Canaan B'Kedusha, a businessman. B'Kedusha, he says that just like a regular businessman, he spends money to make money. In other words, it looks like he's losing money, but really he's buying inventory and he's risking his livelihood in order to make more money. So the Shechina and the Neshama comes, so first of all, the Shechina comes down over here. It sort of risks coming down, and perhaps it won't be successful. But the purpose is in order that it should be able to be Meisif, Netzutzis, and Kedusha. So just like that works, Bechlalos, Bepratius as well, that the Neshama, before it comes down over here, it has a natural, like the Alter Rebbe said, a Kesef is Zov. Kesef, we said, is Ava, Zov is Yira. It has a natural Kesef and Zov, a natural Ava and Yira. So why in the world would the Neshama, good morning, why would the Neshama risk its good stature to come down over here, and perhaps it won't be successful? So the Alter Rebbe says that the pasuk says, David HaMelech says, Tevli teras picha, me'alfei zav v'chesef. And he explains that Tevli teras picha refers to the Torah that I learned down in Ba'ilam Hazeh is greater than what we had in before the Neshama came down to this world. Then he explains this is what it means, Yafa sha'achas b'tshuva, through tshuva ilah, from the depths of the heart, you'll be able to cleave to Hashem in a higher level. So it comes out that even though b'chitzonius, it looks like the neshama is lacking from the Avin Yira when it comes down over here, but it has the advantage of Ru'usa Deliba, which means that it has the advantage of that the inner depth of the heart will be able to attain not necessarily an understanding, but a feeling that no words and no understanding could really grasp. That's basically what we explained yesterday, or I should say on Monday. And then he explained that this is what it means. So he says that that basically that no olam Yisraelim are able to really typhus the our kula kamek lo choshev mamish, and without him, in other words, that even though the chayira looks like there's a world without by itself, but that's only comes from the level of malchus, from the level of b'chvei devatzmei leis machshava tfisa beklal, and that's what it means. Mimamakim karasicha Hashem. So he says that this is the level of Re'usa Deliba, which comes from this is bonus, that when a person contemplates and says that all the worlds and all the highest levels, even the level of Chacham Ilah, only really doesn't really understand the essence of Hashem, so this will cause him to basically go out of his jail and out of his comfort zone and to be one with Hashem. Before the neshama comes down, even though the neshama had a higher grasp, but it did not get the level of Re'usa Deliba. Okay, so we're holding, right, this is where we stopped. We're holding Daf Chov Zayin, V'hinei. So, like this. V'hinei, Bizman Shohaya Beis HaMikdash Kayim, when the Beis HaMikdash was in existence, Haya Nimshach P'china Zu Re'usa Deliba. Where did they get this level of Re'usa Deliba? Megillah Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, in from the revelation of Or Ein Sof beheichel Kodesh Kadoshim, in the heichel of the Kodesh Kadoshim. Mashikosav betanya, like it says in Tanya, is bottled the Ritzeni is Baruch. Says that the Ratzin was bottled to Hashem. Mashikosav kitiuli eretz chayfetz. So where did they get this level of Re'usa Deliba in the times of the Beis HaMikdash? That came from the Kodesh Kadoshim. Bezman HaGalos, in the time of Galos, in Iksiv, what does it say? Ubikashtem misham as Hashem leikecha, that you're going to request from there Hashem, umatzas, you're going to find. So he says, what does it mean ubikashtem misham? Misham daike. It says you're going to request from there. What does that mean? The Hainu. When a person contemplates on the opposite of going in the ways of Hashem, how he is so far from Hashem, like somebody who's over the Ratzon of Hashem, and where is he going to get the flow and the vitality for the Ratzon of Hashem? So he says, what does it say about Hashem? How patient is Hashem? From the level of Erech HaPayim, Nimshach v'nishtalshel v'madregas al yenes, that from the level of Erech HaPayim comes from the high levels and is nishtalshel derech nefila, in a way of like falling, lahachi sa'akum, to give vitality to the goy, af shehem over ritzeni, even though they're over the Ratzon of Hashem. So in other words, the question is, how could the person who's not doing the will of Hashem, how could he get b'chlal any vitality? So he says that there's a level of Erech HaPayim, that Hashem is very patient. This patience comes down like in a way of like falling, derech nefila, and through that the goyim are able to have a chayis from Hashem. So he says, and basically, in the times of the Gullus, like we're saying, ubikashti misham as Hashem leikecha, that when a person basically thinks what Hashem is doing and he's giving the Ratzon, he's giving his vitality in his life, and he's giving sustenance to people that are even going against him. So he says, the Gemara says, in the end of Makkah's famous story, so there was a few, Rabbi Akiva and others were walking and they saw that the ruins of the Beis Hamikdash and how She'olum Holchu Bay, and everyone was crying. And Rabbi Akiva was laughing. So they asked Rabbi Akiva, how are you laughing now? Why are you laughing? So he says, why are you crying? He says, why we're crying? Look at the Beis Hamikdash. So he says, so Rabbi Akiva said, if this is the people who are over the Ratzon of Hashem, this is what they're able to accomplish, how much more so to people who actually do the will of Hashem, how much they're going to be able to accomplish. That they're going to be able to get a hashpah from the Ratzon Elyon, which is higher than any limitations of the world. That they're not getting the level from Chacham and Midas. This is from the inner Nakuda of the heart, which is which is from the level of Tshuva Ilah, which came before the world. So in other words, the people that are over the Ratzon of Hashem, yes, they get a chayis, but they get the chayis from the level of Chacham or Midas from Hashem. The person who goes in the will of Hashem, he gets his vitality and his chayis, he gets from the pnimius of the Nekudas Alei, from the Pintala Yid, from the Pintala part, which is much higher than Chachma and Midas. Now, this is what it means that you're going to seek with all your heart and with all your soul. The Hainu, what does that mean? That you're going to change your heart from one extreme to the other extreme. Transform the darkness to light through the Ru'us Liba Zulimais to be like disgusted in the world of Elam Hazeh v'tanugim v'lim sheikh liba even nafshe dafka b'yisbarach, and to cleave your heart to connect to Hashem. Now this is like we explained, the mashal with the businessman that he extracts money, kesef and zo, from his domain. So why does the businessman, he has millions of dollars, why is he going to risk his money again and buy inventory again, and perhaps he won't be successful? Obviously that is to make more money. So he says, kach neshama, same thing with the neshama. So even though Kivyochel, he's extracting his kesef and zav, which we explained, that he has a kesef, he has a love and a fear from Hashem, of Hashem, in a revealed way. What's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of the neshama coming down? So the reason, in short, why the neshama comes down into this world, if it's a risk, is because however high the Avan year is going to be, Lamaila, it's all going to be in Seichel. This Nekudas Halev, which you can't really describe in words. Sometimes you have a feeling. Sometimes you have a gut about something, and you ask the person to explain, and he's like, I can't explain. I don't have the oisius to explain what I'm feeling, but I know what I'm feeling, or I feel what I'm feeling. So this Ru'usa Deliba, you can only get when coming down over here. When there's a choshech, when there's a golus, when there's a hester, when there's a concealment, and the neshama feels that, then he can get to the level of Ru'usa Deliba. So the chum hu avi kanan, and this is what it means. The chum, right? The pasuk says v'cham zokef gadol. Says v'cham hu avi kanan. It says the chum, he was the father of Canaan, with a zokef gadol, right? In the cantillations and the trup, those are familiar. There's a zokef gadol on v'cham. Now, what does that mean? Why is there a zokef gadol? Zokef gadol means like he stands tall. Why is there a zokef gadol on the chum? Shechamim is rish be'eish v'shal hevas ha'ila l'mayla me'hipich hu ha'oiseh b'chinas kanan lischei. So what causes the businessman what causes him to do what he does is the chum, is the fire that he has. So it says like it's good that she's like in business. In other words, we asked before, Canaan, we're saying Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Canaan. Now, l'chayra, Canaan comes from Chum. Chum was not a good person. So he says that let's understand what Chum is in Kedusha. And Canaan the Kedusha is the businessman. The businessman is the one who's risking his life or risking his assets in order to make more money. So that's like the neshama, that the neshama comes down over here and risks in order to get the level of Rusa Delibo. Now, Chum, what's Chum? Chum is the fire that causes that helps the business. So first you have to preface with the level of Yiratato, which comes, the Yira Tata comes from the level of Malchus, which this is the level of Canaan, of Kedusha, that through this he'll come to the level of the businessman in his hand. He has weights of deceitfulness. So in other words, in order to get to the level of Ru'usa Deliba, that the Neshama should have Ru'usa Deliba, he first has to be makdim the level of Yir Tata. And through that, then he can get to the level of Pnimi Salev. And this is what it means, that Hashem is close to everybody who calls them, to anybody who calls them in truth. The Hainu, what does that mean? With a complete and true heart. Like we see the ganva pum machtarta rachmana karya. We see that by a ganiv, when he's like on top of a roof or he's in a cellar, so he's about to steal, he's about to commit an avera, and what is he doing? He asks Hashem to be successful. It's like it's mamish catch 22. It's like the guy you're about to steal, you're being over what the Torah says, but he's asking Hashem to be successful. Now he says, he stays in his wickedness. He doesn't return from his ways. Sometimes a person can get very excited by davening, and after davening, it just goes away. Why? Because this ava and yira that you had or experience only was in your heart and soul, your mind and your heart and your seichel, but it was all in a very superficial way. It didn't go inwards. At the end of the day, the reason why a person can be so excited sometimes and get emotional by davening, and he'll make these massive resolutions, and what happened after davening? He's the same, it's like they say in English, as the Zelbeferd. He's the same horse. How is that possible? Because this excitement was only in your mayach and your seichel, and it was a very superficial way. It didn't enter the umkud deliba. So this is what it means. Karav Hashem, Hashem is taken close, the chol kedav, but it doesn't last. The chol asher yikru be'emes, the hainu. So he says, Mashenkin kishikaru be'emes. When a person calls Hashem be'emes, the hainu mu'umka deliba. So then he nesvas emes taken la'ad, about timet elam ba. Then it lasts forever. So what we're explaining basically till now is that we asked a very fundamental question: why would the neshama come down over here? So he says the reason why the neshama risks itself is in order to attain the level of Ru'usa Deliba, which it's not shy to get before it comes down over here. And this is the idea of the businessman. We said, what's the idea of Canaan? Canaan is, we didn't get into it yet why Eretz Yisrael is called Canaan, but Canaan basically refers to the businessman who is risking his assets in order to make more money, and that's the idea of the neshama risking itself in order to attain the high level of Ru'usa Deliba. And where does he get that? From the level of Chum, from the level of the fire. And when he has the preface of Chum, then he'll be able to attain the level of Ru'usa Deliba. Okay, so we're holding the Chol Zayin, second paragraph, V'hine Ksiv. It's on the left side. Okay, V'hine Ksiv, behold, it says, Hakol Kol Yaakov. When Esav came into Yaakov, to Yitzchak, to receive the brachas, when Yaakov came in to receive the brachas, so Yitzchak said, Hakol Kol Yaakov, V'hayidayim Yidei Esav. Now, what's interesting is the koil, the first koil is no vav, and the second koil there is a vav. He says, "V'hine ksiv hakoil kol Yaakov," that kadmo chaser vav, the first koil, there's no vav. Why? Shulchinas kala delo yishtama, because the first koil refers to the voice that's basically not heard. It's a voice that you can't hear it. The koil basra, and the last koil is mali vav, has a vav. Shulchinas kala dishma. So when we say Hakol Kol Yaakov, the first koil has no vav because that's a voice that's, like the Zohar says, is not heard, and the second koil is a voice which is heard. Now, and what does this mean? Hine b'chinas Yaakov hu Yud Okev. Yaakov, as we said in other Mamarim a few times, that is comprised of Yud Okev. In other words, the Yaakov Pirush Shayud hu Tchilas HaMachshava. The first Yud refers to the beginning of thought. As we say, Yud Nivra Ilam Haba, that with the Yud, Ilam Haba was created. Nimshach L'Bchinas Okev. At Yaakov, his avodah is that he takes the level of Yud and he brings it to the Okev, V'regel Shel Bchinas Hadibur. So he takes the level of Machshava, the level with the Yud Nivra Ilam, and he brings it down into the level of Dibur. Yaakov, who Mavriach Min HaKotza LaKotza, and Yaakov brings it from one level, one extreme to the other extreme, Mereish Kol Dargan, from the beginning of all the levels. And all these high levels, in the levels, every one of these higher levels, you have the level of Roish, of head, and Regel, and the feet. So Yaakov is the level of Yud Okev, so he says, so what does that mean? The voice which is heard. This is the level of Teiro, which is the level of coming down, just like a voice. So just like what does a voice do? A voice expresses what's in the innards of the heart. So to the Teiro, he b'chinas chochmi lo, which is the level of chochmi lo. B'chinas chakim v'lei b'chochmi yediyah. Sharetai mi'amitzvos l'niskal liyis b'niskal rav lahaven kol imkei shediseo b'prati pratis v'nimshal b'chinas gila yedei slapshus b'dvarim gashim say the zorim moed chuli. So what does Torah do? Torah is like the voice which is heard, which it connects. Just like a voice actually expresses what's in the heart of a person, so too Torah expresses what's basically what Hashem desires and what Hashem wants. But it's not going to express the deepest parts of it. Torah has to be mislabish in dvarim gashmim, like we know there's seder mayid, and through that, then we could have an understanding. Then we could hear. Ubchinas koil, this is the level of koil. Amshacha sheyakeh yud okiv. Tahainu ubchinas yud shehu yichachim ilah. So again, Yaakov is the level of Yud, Chacham Ilah, and he brings the level of Torah down to Asiyah. In order for a person to be a receptacle and to be a kli to receive the Torah, he has to have the level of bittul, which is the level of Ru'usa Deliba. This is the voice which is not heard. The ruach amshi ruach, the yis'er Hashem shedem is gala bay liyos chochmas Hashem ekir bay b'yiskalas v'chabash v'nafshe v'telim v'tzveim elov v'inyin is dabkus rucha b'ruchas. In order for the person to actually attain the level of that the Torah should stick with him, should reside in him, he has to have the level of bittul. Okay, so we'll stop over here. So basically, what's the first koil? The first koil of Yaakov is no vav. That's the kol de yishtama, which means that's the preparation for the next koil of Torah. In order to be zeicha, that Torah should stick by a person, he has to have the first koil without the vav, the bittul, and then through that, then he can have the next koil. Okay, next week we're gonna continue. There's a mimer. We'll skip a little bit. There's a mimer on Chanukah. And if you guys want, maybe we can have maybe a few more days instead of Monday. In addition to Monday and Tuesday, Chanukah, it's a time to be Vayeishev in Torah, so we could perhaps learn this mimer. There's another mimer Chanukah, but we'll do that next week. Okay.